Junkdrummer TV, Know Your Role, Episode 2, Harry Miree, what's happening?
Hello, dudes.
On one of the commenters on the video I just did for you today, there's an over-under for how many dudes we're going to have, and it said at 30.
We'll crush that shortly, dude.
I think so, dude. I think so. So, man, there's no way around it. Every musical conversation right now is around the quarantine. How has it affected you? And were you on a tour that got canceled? Do you know that you've missed a bunch of gigs because of it?
I don't know when I thought I was going to stop going on stage, but I didn't think it was going to be this year, man.
I hear you.
It's funny I'm pretty religious every January 1 about like setting forth my goals for that year.
Okay.
I realize January 1 is like artifice basically, but I buy into certain things like that for the structure that it gives me.
Yep.
And on January 1 this year, I asked myself to release 5 videos, and I just hit number 5 yesterday. And the absurd realization that's hit me like a sack of bricks is, how was I going to do that and play 160 shows at the same time?
So were you booked for 160, or was that what you were trying to get to?
On January 1 of this year, I knew for a fact that I was going to play 160 shows this year.
Do you know how many you got to?
My gut tells me, I mean, that train sped all the way into the concrete wall that was March 14. Mm-hmm. But you know, the winter months are slower than summer. Summer is like, in my experience, you're playing Monday through Sunday, whereas in the winter, like what I remember doing in January and February this year, the last time I remember being on stage was Drumeo Festival in Vancouver.
Okay.
That was like February, and prior to that, probably like Weekend Warrioring. I'm gonna say that I played 15 shows this year, and that's it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and so I don't even recognize myself in the mirror. It's hot outside, and the feeling of summer heat on my skin makes me go like, "Oh, I'm about to see all my touring friends, and where's the crowd in the $90 t-shirts?" Like, my body doesn't understand why I'm not like on the road somewhere right now.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm going to try to not make this too much of a fanboy, but really the only thing that would keep you off the stage with your abilities is a nationwide pandemic. That was the thing that blew me up when you did. I think it was the first video that I watched from you. And I told the story a little bit on the video I did for you today. I was one of the few times I wasn't driving my band's van home. I was messing around in the back, and I came across that video. And in that video, you did the whole run through of, you know, got a gig or audition, didn't get it. Audition, did get it. You know, that routine. Mm-hmm. And then I watched some of you playing. I watched you do the Carter stuff. You do one of the better Carters that you're going to find on YouTube for sure.
Oh, man. Thank you.
And I was just like, man, this makes me never want to go to Nashville, because if this dude doesn't get every gig that he walks in for, what's going on down there?
Man, I know that's like really kind, man. Thank you. I know the feeling you're talking about. And maybe just for like psychological or survival sake, I've bought into this other storyline. Some of the gigs that I missed out on, I used 100% of my ability and determination and preparation, and I just didn't get there. And I saw some of these guys that beat me, like Jared Neal, who got the gig for Hunter Hayes, and I heard him go on with Hunter Hayes, and I go, dude, this has nothing to do with me or my abilities or anything. Like, he is the perfect fit for that gig. At some point, my attitude morphed into this idea that like each of us are just a different thing. We're each a different voice. And like Shaq fits in great on certain basketball teams.
Not for Boston.
Exactly, man.
That was sad. That was sad when he was the big Shamrock.
Man, I was living in Boston at that time, and I paid out at that time, you know, 100% of my net worth to get a nosebleed seat to the Boston Garden. And he was so old by that time that he wasn't even in the building. Like, he didn't even suit up. He was just like technically a Celtic.
That was sad. It's so sad. But what you were saying before is something I tell my students a lot. And it's something that a lot of people who I've found, you know, because like I said, at the beginning of every one of my videos, I've been a drum teacher for 20 plus years. And I have a lot of kids who like maybe come from sports, and they feel that like, you know, they feel that the life could be a meritocracy. Like, well, hey, I'm the best, so I should get this thing. And like, I had a kid who auditioned for a scholarship at Belmont, and he didn't get it the first year. And he just couldn't believe it. He's like, I've worked so hard. And I was like, man, it's not like that. It's not like who has the most points wins the game in this art. It's something a lot of people, I think, like, you have people who talk about their favorite band that maybe isn't big. Like, oh, this band's so amazing. Why aren't they so gigantic? It's like, because it's not a meritocracy. It's not that. It's not just because you're the best at it doesn't mean that you're going to get the thing.
Well said, man. So then the question becomes, what do we do with that? And the vibe I get from you is that, like, that's a thing to be embraced and celebrated, right?
When I was a kid, I had this VCR tape, and it was called Junkdrummer Volume 1 or 2, and it was and it was like back in the day before YouTube, because I'm a lot older than you are, we had to, get 5 VCR tapes to watch drum stuff. And this had Steve Smith on it, had Peter Erskine on it, had Rod Morgenstein on it. Oh, man. Somebody else. And one thing that, and I heard this at 15, and I really took it to heart, because Rod Morgenstein was talking about, like, when he was auditioning for Winger. Remember when he went from, like, was it Dixie Dregs, right?
Yeah, he was in the Dregs all through the 70s, and then he did Winger in the 80s.
And he was talking about auditioning for that, and he said, like, look, man, he was like, and he was a little arrogant about it. He's like, look, I'm good. I'm playing the Dixie Dregs. But it's like, when I went into this audition, the first thing they looked at was what I look like. And am I cool? Do I look cool on stage? And he's like, I knew that I was dealing with that. Yeah. And I was like, oh, the big light bulb. I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. I could be, the best drummer in the world, but if somebody don't think I look cool on stage. And then I actually said this today in a lesson. I have a student who's wanting to go to Berklee, and I'm trying to talk him out of it. His mom's a doctor and his dad's a lawyer, and I'm just like, dude, I made him watch your video on the finance thing, and I was just like, here's what you have to look forward to, because he has dreams of Berklee, Nashville, right? I'm from that area where if you're good enough, you go to Nashville, because that's where the gigs are. It's where the music's made. And I was like, dude, it's not just how great you are. Do you look cool on stage? Are you great? And then the second part, pro hang. Which the first time I ever heard that was from our buddy Jimmy, from our mutual friend Jimmy. Shout out Jimmy. He's the reason why this happened. Was the pro hang thing. So like what I really wanted to explore with you is just how you've navigated Nashville, because I know there's a lot of pitfalls, and it's extremely hard to get a foothold down there. Like, when did you realize that those other things that came around the periphery of your musicianship was just as important?
It does get said enough that maybe if you're going out looking for gig advice, I want to be a professional, what's your advice, that kind of thing.
Yes.
It is probably at this point like a necessary cliche. It is something it is like an oral tradition in that business now. You like the don't be a dick thing.
Right.
And there's a reason for that, man. Like the close quarters that we contend with each other as humans for 23 hours a day, and then as musicians for 1 hour a day.
That's very well said.
Except on travel days, and then it's 0 hours. And travel days are 58 hours long per day. So
yes.
Look at me whining. I don't mean it that way.
No, dude. I'm with you. I understand. I've done, from where I'm from to Atlanta and back in a day, and that's like a 20-hour. We drove 20 hours to play an hour and a half, and then come back to whoever booked that show needed to be back 10 hours back after that. And I understand why you think that that's bad to complain about. I'm from like a blue collar area, and my family like working coal mines, and I'm like, I was in a white van for 12 hours today. But man, that is a pain. It's a big pain, and it's an hour suck, because it's all those hours you can't get anything done.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're productive on the road, man. You're watching Harry Miree YouTube videos in the back of the van.
Watching you completely destroy the industry that was the Cajon industry.
Oh, well, that's the goal. I don't know if we've gotten there yet.
It has. It has. That thing, that cajon business was getting out of hand, and somebody needed to do something about it.
Yeah, the asterisk I would put on it is it was definitely getting out of hand in contexts that it did not belong in. Um, I do I do hang on every syllable when people from like South America go like, "Hey man, um, this is like an actual musical instrument that belong." Like sometimes I feel shame that apparently I was not acknowledging enough of that, even though I super like vividly feel that.
Oh no, no, drummers know, we know, and that's the reason why when it's used at the Songbird Cafe,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not what it's for. Man, you know, there's a Miranda Lambert track on that last record, the one that has Tin Man on it. It might even be Tin Man. But there's a track on there, and a girl I was going out with was like, "Oh my God, what's this drum part?" Because she's like dating a drummer, and she wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, "I don't know about drums."
Yeah.
And I was like, "That's a killer cajon part. That is a cajon part that is perfect for that song." You know, so yeah, I don't think people thought that you were like poo-pooing on a rich tradition of where that instrument is, but it goes to like, you've probably been asked to be like, "Hey, can you bring some congas to the Bluebird
Mm.
Cafe?"
Man, and I knew that I wasn't the only one. Like by the time I had gotten that fed up with it, I knew that this was like a Shakespearean level of universal human experience.
It is.
Uh,
It is. It's what everyone's go to of how of trying to preemptively control what they think a drummer will be out of control in, and they don't give us the respect of like, my boss does this. The place that I teach at, he wants me to record with him, and he's kind of like this old man folk guy, so he doesn't want anything really loud.
mhm.
And like he'll want me to do a gig. I'm like, "Well, you know, can you maybe bring a cajon or some congas?" Like, I could just bring a drum set and play piano.
Mm. uh,
They
yeah,
forget that we can do that.
right. Dude, I hear what you're saying, and I also feel some empowerment from you. You go like, well, the way we change that is we show up, we understand what they're actually asking for, and we show up with like a musical solution to that
That's
that
it.
happens to not be a storage crate.
It is. Oh God, dude! Not all heroes wear capes, and here he is. Because I guarantee. Well, I told the story on your video today again that we played a radio show last Wednesday, and the radio show's put up in a museum. And they, you know, we knew there was low volume going in, and the guy was like, you know, how's your cajon skills? And I was like, they didn't have those in college when I went. We did. I played timpani, like I played some xylophone, but I don't know about this thing. And I sent him your video, and I was like, I will just bring the proper gear that you need. And I understand where they're coming from. They've, you know, drummers, what is the stereotype of us is we're animal. We're just going to come into your high volume folk gig and play John Bonham licks.
Oh yeah, I know how we got here, man. Well, I that's great. That's a testament to how trusted you are that they went, okay, man, we have respect for you. Bring whatever you feel like you got to bring.
So have you ran into where people, like, how many times do you run into people, especially over, it seems like, is that your biggest video?
Well, there are different ways to measure big is one thing I've learned from having different things do different things in my life.
Okay.
So if biggest means, is that the most viewed thing I've ever made? No.
Oh,
But but has it spiritually moved the needle for people the most, or a certain demographic of people that I might describe as working musicians? Absolutely. Um, like it is its own. You can have. I've learned you can have something with a lot of views, but there's this immeasurable aspect to the quality of those views. There are cat videos that have 1 trillion views, but nobody remembers that they saw them because it was like a transient 30 seconds of their life that was amusing, uh, not enough for them to even remember the next day, right? So it's the feeling I have about the Cajon video, which I'm so thankful for, is that yeah, more people have seen it than I ever thought would, but like more importantly, uh, people remember it. In fact, I'll put it this way, man. I'm not sure if I've told you this story. This was the moment that I knew I could die and I've left a mark on the world or something. When the last Low Cash album came out, this was like March or April of last year. The day it came out, we played the Grand Ole Opry here. And ordinarily you just go on stage full band, you play 3 songs, but it was like part of this album release marketing. And so they have a B stage at the Grand Ole Opry, kind of like the radio show you just described. It's where they shot the old show Hee Haw. You remember that show?
Yeah, I'm from the South, of course.
My man. So we're on the set. We're on the old set of Hee Haw, which is in the Grand Ole Opry building, and the deal was something like the first 400 people that buy the album tonight at the Grand Ole Opry, we're gonna usher you to this VIP post-show acoustic thing. It's just gonna be like acoustic percussion and acoustic guitar and the boys and low cash. That's it. And they'll give you this intimate acoustic concert. Okay, so I go to load into that thing before we play at the Opry, and I set up my little thing, which you know about, that fits in 2 bags and fits into airplane overhead bins and all that. And I'm setting it up, and the sound guy comes up and he goes, "Boy, am I glad not to see a cajon." I go, "Nice, that's cool." He's like, No, you don't get it. I'm so happy that you don't have a cajon." I'm like, "Hey, me too, man. This is great." He's like, "No, man, cajones are like, so, you know what? You got to check out this video of this guy. There's this guy who hates cajones, man. And he has this little drum set. It's actually kind of like yours, come to think of it. And he just goes on a tirade. You got to check it out." I'm like, "Great." And he thinks,
sold it.
he thought I was being dismissive, and so he kind of pushed. He's like, "I'm serious. I know you need to check this video out." So I go, "Great. What's the guy's name?" He's like, "I don't know, man, but you got to check it out. He's so funny." And I'm like, "Great." And it was this really gratifying moment of, wow, like the message has transcended the messenger.
It's transcended even what you look like.
Yes, and I like somehow that was more gratifying to me than, I mean, I also am, anytime I'm in a music shop or an airport and somebody goes, there are people who don't know my name and go, "Dude, where's your cajon?" I get that from stagehands a lot. They're rolling your stuff around and they see you and they're like, "Hey man, where's your cajon?" Which is also touching and cool. But the Opry moment is the one I'm going to remember of, like, dude, the message has transcended the messenger.
Dude, did you ever tell him?
No. I hope that just put it in his mind, and then he went home. And in my brain, he went home and like watched the video again, and then at the end, he just dropped his iPad and goes like, "Oh, I just met that guy."
That either happened, or he just has that, like, I call it like engineer NPC. They've seen so many of us, they don't even recognize us anymore. We're just a blank mannequin of a thing. Like, "Hey, you're just another bag of flesh that's been in here that I have to run microphones for."
Dude, that's so beautifully put, right? And that goes both ways. I know that I have to super deliberately engage in the act of, "What's your name?" when I meet sound guys. And then I'll intentionally, almost cheesily, like say it back to them multiple times, to the point where you can tell I'm trying really hard to like force it into the language part of my brain, because you can really dehumanize these people, man.
I'll do you one better. The last band I was in, we would send a group text of the names.
My man, now you're getting efficient with it. You're
well, because man, that does mean a lot, because a lot, I mean, man, especially engineers down there. God, those engineers are working 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. They've seen every Yahoo from the world coming in to play a gig, so they can say they played a gig on Broadway, and they don't remember. Yeah. But if you could be like, "Matt, brother, mm-hmm. thanks for the thing," yeah. That's big, and that's a small, man. We're on the same wavelength there. That small little thing can buy sounds like you're in it for something, but it can buy you some peace with someone down the road.
Oh yeah, and that's why I want to thank you again for having me on your show, James.
Thank you, Hank.
So moving on.
So let's talk about how you got there. Nashville right now seems to be, and I have some insight because I've played down there a bunch, but I have good friends down there, and we have a mutual friend together. It seems to be the most, the most happening music scene that is also affordable, which is a big part. Because are you from Boston?
No, I just went to college there. I grew up in Alabama.
No way.
Yeah, I just don't really wear that on my sleeve
Are you
because,
shitting me?
that's a very shameful place to be from, as you know.
Dude, I thought you were a Yankee this whole time, Hank.
Some part of me is like very touched and honored by that. Some people accuse me of being Canadian too, which I take kindly to.
That's because you're funny.
Um,
That's what it is. Because Canadians are funnier than we are.
when I was waiting tables, occasionally people would think I was from California. I've said "dude" my whole life.
Man, I'm from the South too, and I've said dude forever.
Mhm.
We're gonna have a dude count here somewhere.
Yeah, I've lost count already. It's like breathing oxygen. How can you count the molecules?
I would have never thought you were from Alabama.
Tell me about that. Why is that?
Because I'm from the South, and you can hear it, and you have no semblance of that Southern drawl. And especially because I'm from a part of the South that doesn't have that antebellum, Muscle Shoals, man. That man, that real slow. I mean, come on, I know you have to play there a lot, right? That's one of your if you're playing out of Nashville, you play in that area a bunch, right?
Sure. Yeah, I would call it like you start in the SEC conference, kind of as a right as a touring musician. It's not just for football players.
When you make it to the Big Ten, your region, you're getting bigger than just regional. If you get to the Big Ten, if you get the Pac-10, then you're a national act.
I'm so on the same page with you about that. I do, and maybe just as a story that I tell myself to motivate myself, I do think of I call it the league here all the time. And you look at other acts that are on the road with you, like other teams, and you go, man, they've got a great five or a great it's the only problem I have with that narrative is that it sounds inherently competitive or something.
Right.
And there, like that dynamic on some level must be there, right? Because
well, you're blowing me up you're blowing my mind when you say they have a great five. I have consistently said that a good drummer is like a point guard, is like a one.
My man. Yeah.
I've said that. And a bass player is the five, like the bass player is the center that cleans up all the bullshit.
The big man, yeah.
And the drummer sets the pace. The drummer calls the plays and we set the pace for the point guard. You're the first other person that's ever Harry, you're the first person that I've heard besides me use that basketball analogy, because it's exactly that.
I feel very unalone as you say that, man.
Because the guitar player and singers are your 2, your 3, they're your scorers. They're your people that everyone knows about.
This is fun.
And then the drummer and the center, unless you're Shaq or John Stockton, are the guys that no one knows about. You're the guy passing it to Michael Jordan.
Yeah, indeed, man. And there's a beauty to that, and it helps me motivate myself to like be a part of the league here, kind of, and like appreciate other talents and how and like the combustion of those things, how certain combinations of players, I know you must feel this way too, that I've been in bands that were the greatest chemical combinations of musicianship ever, even if there was no particular star. And also I've been in bands that were like handpicked to be all the killingest killers, and something didn't work for me.
It's the Portland Trailblazers of the early aughts. When they had Scottie Pippen and Steve Smith, and they had what was that?
Was
center?
Clyde the Glide still hanging around, or did he retire? I think
this was right after him. After Clyde left, they put together 5 all-stars from other teams.
Yeah,
and it was all based around Pippen. It was Pippen.
Yeah.
Oh man, I used to play this on NBA 2K. I know this team so well, and I can't think of it anymore.
Well, most importantly, I believe at that time, one prominent Blazer was Sabonis.
Arvydas Sabonis, that's who I was trying to think of. And it was 5 all-stars, and it was like, okay, Clyde's gone. We're going to put this all-star team together. No chemistry. They didn't get out of the second round, but they had 5 all-stars on the team.
Man, the Lakers, the early 2000s Lakers had, in my mind, I thought that was probably that was maybe more competitive than it was in reality. That the Blazers maybe were giving those Lakers trouble, but
but they were put together to beat them. You're right. So the Lakers had Kobe and Shaq and all these great role players that weren't all-stars. Maybe Horry wasn't an all-star then. Fox wasn't an all-star then. But, here's the Blazers, and they've got all of these all-stars, and they could never get past Kobe and Shaq.
I take full responsibility for this, but if any drummers were watching up to this point, they are not watching anymore. They have
drummers, musicians like sports too. I mean, what else do you talk about on the
Right
road? You want to talk about that Jocko record again, or you want to talk about sports?
Well said. But the point being, I'm glad that you echo the sentiment. That's my feeling. You can cram a band with all stars, but it's about the combustion between the molecules, not necessarily the molecules themselves.
That goes back to what you're talking about with the audition, that like maybe you didn't get that audition, but your chemistry just wasn't right for that one thing. Because I know that you're really humble. You could probably think that it's not my ability that didn't get me there. It's something other. It's that metaphysical thing you can't write down in a measure of 4/4.
When I come to conclusions like that, that's like an important thing to grok, right? Sometimes I get paranoid that I'm defensively saying that to myself to absolve myself of responsibility to get better. So, so I will wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying, and then also like try and make good on my obligation to add to that I improved so much on my instrument from that failure.
Oh, I say it all the time to students. Like, I don't practice particularly because I like playing by myself, because I really like playing music and playing bands. I practice out of fear. None of my practice with my bands and writing songs, that's the game for me, right? But the dribbling in between the cones and doing wind sprints and practicing myself, I hate it. But I do it out of fear. I fear not practicing. Which probably isn't very healthy mentally.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I have that same skepticism of it, but also like really relate to what you're saying. I want to know more though, like what exactly are you afraid of? What killer animal are you running from when you practice?
Mistakes and letting the band down. You know, I'm in a different position than you, where I'm more into, or I've been more in like bands that are organizations, and I've done sideman stuff. That's how I got with Jimmy. Was me and Jimmy was in a band, and then we ended up kind of being pimped out by the leader to all these other musicians. We were kind of the house band for our area, right? And those were the side bands. So mine has always been, I've been in bands with my best friends or people that I respect, and even sidemans also. And I do it because I don't want to let them down. The last thing I want to do is like Chris, my bass player who I've played with for 10 years, to like give me that look over his glasses at me of disappointment that I have sped up 1.5 beats from the verse to the chorus.
Interesting, man. There is a human facet to that. Like, I'm sure that if you saw a psychologist about that, they would ask you if your parents looked down at you over their glasses or something, and you would find something there. But I know as you say that you're not alone. So depending on how you install your love of music into your life, it can go to this high pressure place where now it's your identity.
That's something that I had a chance to move down there about 6-7 years ago, working with a long-term girlfriend. I was out on my ass, and I was in limbo, and Jimmy was like, come on down. Like, let's go. It's time to go, and I had our other friend, John, was like, live in the basement until you get on your feet. And then, this is before I knew who you were, but I know that your caliber's running around. And I was just like, this is too much. I'll be in the NAIA. This NCAA Div 2 or Div 1 is too scary. This is what I think about Nashville, and I want you to clear this up for me. And again, I have friends down there. I feel like Nashville is so competitive that if you had like a really good gig, another drummer would steal your cymbals and throw them off the bridge so you couldn't get that gig, so he could be like, hey man, my cymbals are available for that gig.
Well, I understand the concern, and who knows how much of that is our own negative self-talk that we're amplifying, right? Because experientially, like another cliche thing that gets said here, maybe because it sounds good, maybe because it's true, is that we all love each other, we all want each other to succeed. And I know from my own experiences that there are, I cannot, all in this one sitting with you, no matter how much time we have, I cannot name all the drummers to you that I admire so much here and I want them to succeed so much. And sometimes I see they're sitting in the hallway when I come out of an audition at SIR, they're there. And so it can seem like we have these competing needs,
Right.
especially because you partly rise with your class here, right? So you get your SEC gig, okay, and then everybody kind of finds one, and maybe whoever you're playing with at that time gets a song in the top 40 or something. Well, now you're in certain support slots. The demand for you is higher. Who do you want to throw your seat to now? The guy that was waiting in the hallway when you auditioned and got this gig in the first place, right? So there are bubbles here. There are strong bonds and authentic friendships here. But yeah, of course, also as with every competitive thing, this gets talked about less. But there's vitriol, there's resentment. There's that kind of divisive human nature of me versus them or something.
Because that's kind of baked in the cake because of the cattle call audition culture of that, right?
Yes, totally. And I'll tell you one other kind of dividing factor that I've noticed here that it makes me shiver in my boots when I'm around. Because we all go to the same places. If you want to meet every drummer in Nashville, there's certain places you can go
right
at certain times, and we're all kind of interested in the same things. And if Miree is going to get up and like play a rock song at the High Watt, we want to all go stand in there and hear him.
Is that where is he down there now?
Yeah.
How long has that been a thing?
I knew him originally as a New Yorker.
Right. Because wasn't he like Genesis, right?
Oh, I mean, my first cognitively aware experience of him was Room for Squares.
Okay.
John Mayer, 2000.
Okay.
But I got here and was like learning all his parts to go on the road. You know, there's a pile of studio guys here, and then the road guys go like play it out. And so
yeah.
there are 5 drummers whose parts you just learn. If you're going to be a road guy here, you're going to play the drum parts of these 5 guys, like Jerry Rowe and Miree and Greg. These people aren't as much a part of my life as the road guys are. So I'm gonna forget somebody, and that makes me sad and feel irreverent or something. But Greg Morrow, that's who I was thinking of.
Right.
There's a fella from South Africa, and I can see his face perfectly. And he played on all the great Taylor Swift stuff. And I'm going insane that I can't remember his name, but I saw him do like the first Monday of every month here, we'll do this thing called Loud Jams. I say we as if I have anything to do with it, and I don't. I just play it sometimes.
The community.
But, yeah, totally. Tom Hurst is like the mayor of the drummers here, and he plays with Sister Hazel now, I think.
Okay.
But he had played, I think the Backstreet Boys were somewhere on his resume. He's made his mark for a long time, and like loves the craft of drumming, loves the community of drumming. He does the first Monday of every month here, he does an event called Loud Jams. And the idea is that all of us are on the road playing all these country songs all the time. But we love, in our hearts, we love fusion from the 80s. We all want to be like...
We're going to get together and see who can play Spain better.
Dude, this is what I'm talking about. And so you get like these... for one song at a time, there might be 15 songs in a night. Each of the 15 songs has a different band. And so it might be Sean Paddock, who plays with Kenny Chesney on the drums, and then Amos, who plays with Taylor Swift on the bass, and then Fall Out Boy's Mersh guy will sing, and then, you know what I mean? You just randos getting up there playing music they love for the love of it, and no money changes hands.
Right.
But,
where does this go on at?
The High Watt, which is a rock club here in town.
Okay.
It's at Cannery. We have like a cluster of buildings here, High Watt, Mercy Lounge, and Cannery Ballroom, and it's kind of a cluster of I would describe it as probably 200 capacity venue, man.
Oh, my favorites.
And we're up there sweating on each other, like playing these songs, and no one will ever know that we did it. It's just I don't even know if you might pay $5 to get in or something, and you go there to see these insanely accomplished, talented musicians who are known for playing on Taylor Swift records. They go up there and they play the dirtiest up tempo shuffle, and they hit, and it breaks your bones as they hit the drums. It's like, and then you go home and you're like, I just want to like learn how to play the drums for the first time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, where else in the world can you go and just be casually surrounded by that? It just elevates you, man. The all ships rise with the tide. And so we all know that we owe that to one another. And so assuming you have a healthy enough relationship with yourself, so to speak, or are not so, because I'm really inclined to be honest about the ugly stuff too, and admit that I do know guys here who do not want me to be alive. Like, they do want me to fall into a ditch.
I was going to say, this is too much. I do completely understand what you're saying. And that's when, that's music played in its purest form, right? You're not doing it with any, there's no reason to do it other than because you want to. It's the most purest form. And that's beautiful. But I'm also thinking here, like, okay, who's that guy that would steal your drumstick, steal your drum bag?
I know. I can tell you his name in HD quality right now, and I'm not going to do it.
Oh yeah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to burn anyone down.
So I don't know. Like, some guys in town just seem like they're really well loved from the outside. Like, I can name certain drummers that's like, who could ever in their lifetime have a problem with Mark Poes? He plays with Tyler Farr, and he is like such a beautiful combination of reverence for all the drumming that came before him, but he's truly modern. He mixes them in like, he went to Miami where they take all genres of music seriously down there, and like he's like, I love him so much on the drums. He's so nice and cool. It's like, how could anybody have a negative feeling and so that's how I feel about him externally. In his own mind, it can be more complicated in your own mind. Maybe he thinks people are out to get him. I hope he doesn't think that, because he's like amazing. He's so good. But I know in my own experiences, I'll acknowledge something to you out loud right now that I don't think it's necessarily a productive choice for me to acknowledge it. But I just like the honesty thing is like
the beard of truth.
Something like that, man. I don't want to get too carried away with that. But when I notice something makes me feel insecure or uncomfortable, I'm trying to exercise a lean into that and going like, well, let's explore that. And so I will take a risk with you right now and say that one of the comments that I saw on it either was on the video that came out yesterday or 8 days ago.
The 8 days ago was the drum solo?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were both, I put them out as a pair because
gotta watch that comment section, brother. Oh man.
Thematically they connect to one another, but the thing they have in common is like, these two videos are videos I've wanted to make for a long time about my actual drumming life, which is what happens on the road. Up until now, like, I had noticed that people's concept of me was that, like, I would notice all the time people are going, is Harry dead? He's not posting any YouTube videos. And I go like, I've played
30 gigs this month.
Yeah, I'm not even in the same country as my house right now. Like, like, I don't remember what my house looks like. Is sometimes my reaction to people saying that, but also like, not in an inflamed way. I'm like, man, I'm so happy that people are eager to commune with the stuff that I make. That's cool. But one of the comments that I noticed either yesterday or the week before, since this is all addressing the gig part of my life, one of them said, hey, why don't you make a video now about all the heads that you had to step on to get
oh goddamn.
Man, it was a layer beyond that. It was, why don't you make a video about all the drummers who are better than you, whose heads you had to step on in order to
that, like, as someone who just a few days ago was told that I looked 40 pounds overweight, that's oddly personal question to ask, That's almost
Yeah.
like someone who has like a vendetta.
Right.
That's strange. Oh my God.
Well, and that's why I know where that comes from, man. I could like.
Do you know who said that?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my God, that
and
is so brutal.
The reason, and you know, it like bugs me that I'm talking about it out loud because I don't, you know, like the real solution to those things is to pay them no attention, give them no credence.
But
I don't.
that
I
stuff's
get
out
told,
there. That stuff's out there in the world.
Yeah, I would not have brought it up if you weren't asking about these dynamics, because this just plays into that subject for me, even if I don't spend that much time thinking about it. Because ultimately, like, we just got to do what we think is best, right? I'm not gonna all of a sudden be afraid I'm an unethical person or something,
right?
But I noticed that, I don't know, like all of us who have YouTube channels 20 times a day, we're all going to get told how ugly we are. Yeah. And for some reason that doesn't bother me because my identity doesn't revolve around being good looking. Like I don't, if that's never who you were, what, like, I don't.
You're being humble, Harry. We do know you're a good looking fella, sir.
That's what I was fishing for.
Of course. Well,
so we can conclude the interview now.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night. But that's an oddly personal one, man. Oh my goodness. But see, that like buys in. What that really sounds like is some sour grapes of maybe someone who, this is just me just spitballing, hearing that for the first time. I would think that maybe somebody just maybe needs to work on their attitude and go home and practice more.
Well, okay, so I'll engage what you're saying. For his, like, I'll be very non-specific about this story because I'm not trying to put anybody in any particular light. But
understandable.
In vague terms, let's say a few years ago, I was on tour, and the act that was opening for us every night, or we had an act opening for us every night who I loved. I would go out into the crowd every night and watch these guys, or stand on the side of the stage and watch them, like, every night. I loved their musicality. I loved the way they put it. And then meanwhile, I was headlining. I was doing, like, I was in the act that people were waiting out on the pavement for, but I was noticing my favorite part of the night was when our support act was playing. Because the way they were killing it and the musicianship. And I also related to them as people. And so we just spent a lot of time together, man. They had like a lot of friction with their interpersonal friction with their drummer. And so eventually they were going on this other massive tour that summer, right? And they decided eventually they had a limited number of inputs. They were going to be first of 4 on like an arena tour. And so you have a limited number of inputs for your 20-minute set. And more importantly, a limited number of bunks. How many guys can we bring? There were 4 guys in the band. They had 3 bunks available. So they went, somebody has to stay home. Every band in that position that does the 1 of 4, they leave their bass player home and they put it in the tracks. And these guys decided that the interpersonal chemistry was so bad in their group that they were actually going to leave the drummer home and bring the bass player. Yeah, exactly. And they got their bass player to play a Roland pad. And the question was, that they go, that's how we want to solve this. And their question was, how can we design our tracks in a way that we can execute on that? And so I built their tracks rig for them.
Oh no!
and they went on this big tour, and I was doing my own stuff. And then in the fall, when it was time for them to start doing their own shows again, they needed a drummer who could run. Like, they were going to use a drummer again, and they needed a drummer who could run that. And so they came to me for it. And one of my questions is, can you hear that?
Yeah,
that's my hog.
Nice.
I'm just kidding. That's my girlfriend. I'm kidding about that too. My first question when they asked me that was,
does he know?
Yeah, have you been transparent with this guy? And what I was told was, man, it's not your place to bring that up. Management's going to take care of it. So the way this guy found out eventually is like, he stumbled into a picture of me with his band, and we're in Australia, like hanging out with kangaroos. It was a picture of us with kangaroos. And so when I imagine that from his perspective, he goes like, okay, I feel not valued as a human. I feel dismissed. No one was transparent. But most importantly, like, what is the face that you put on that villain, that feeling that you've been disrespected? The reaction is to my face, you know what I mean? And so I have to take risk. So I understand. I understand at that point that, like you're saying, I guess this was a 90-minute way of saying there is this competitive layer here that leads to complicated, sad feelings, and like the driftwood that you must cling to in that Titanic wreck is like make ethical choices and respect the people around you. Like make decisions that you can sleep with at night and know that, man, part of climbing that ladder means like you pass by corpses on the way, and it's complicated and sad.
Well, you know, hey, Harry, hold on for a second.
Yeah.
I need
to. Now we both get paid for that, right?
Yeah, I'm famous.
I don't do that for free now.
I had to ask, have you ever stolen the bag of Tostitos from catering?
Oh, dude, part of my tremendous material wealth has come from all the bottles of hotel toothpaste and shampoo, and
I have the same in my bathroom of the little yeah.
And just the countless. I don't know if that'll ever leave me. I'm not sure that financially it's even necessary anymore, but spiritually is who we are, right? But catering, dude, especially, I basically eat at the same time every night in relation to when I'm going to go on. And right before they shut it down, still to this day, I make another to-go plate and I put it in the fridge in the bus. Because if you're stuck somewhere and you need, like, my favorite game on the road is how many days can I go without seeing what my credit card looks like.
That's doing it right, because it's not about what you earn, it's what you save.
That's the idea.
So, and actually this will all tie in too, because I do want to talk about some of your secondary education. I had a professor in college. You know, you always have, did you go to Berklee? I'm assuming you went to Berklee if you were in Boston. Okay. It's different there. I went to an HBCU, so we had, you know, just kind of professors, right? You just had music professors, but we had one cat who was from Kansas City, and he had been a gigging trumpet player, like in that last wave of big bands, like late 50s, early 60s, when big bands were still sort of viable. So he was like, his name was Dr. Hall, and he was like the hip cat, right? And he told this to us once. He's like, look, man, he's like, you know, you go to, and he did talk like that real, like downtown New York jazz guy slang. He's like, man, you go on a gig. He's just like, you know, you get your money. Yeah. He's like, but if you don't get catering, you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
So like 20, I'm like, yes. And that's turned into stealing bottles of booze to take home. And, you know, I need a bag of Doritos for the house when I get home.
Man, I'm so proud of Dr. Hall. Am I getting his name right? Look at me.
Dr. Hall.
I'm so proud of him I'm so moved that was his wisdom that he imparted to you, because my favorite kind of truth is the truth that was here long before either of us were born.
Right. And this is a cat who figured that out in the 50s.
Yes, exactly. Like, that's why that resonates with me, man. Those are the truths to hang your hat on, man.
And that connects with what your story that you just told about, you know, how you can, you know, stumble into no fault of your own, you know, hard feelings in a community that you live in. Boy, that's just something that's not talked about in Music Theory 101.
Right. Yeah, that is so funny. Like, that's one of the interesting, not dichotomies, strange reality distortion experiments about going to college for music.
Yeah.
Is that in this Schrodinger's cat way, like observing it academically makes it therefore not what it was. Yeah, that's complicated, man.
But dude, you're talking about what Frank Zappa said. You know, Zappa said that, like, once it's codified, it's that, and it can't be that, and then you don't get any peripheral around that because it's just that one thing now. And maybe, but see, Berklee, I would just guess it's different. I have had a few students that did go to Berklee. One cat's named Sam Wiseman. He's in Nashville right now. Maybe you've ran into him. But he was one of my first students I ever had that, like, went on to some success, and he went to Berklee. Does seem like And I want you to kind of be a bit of a, because again, I think of this as an education channel first. You know, if you can talk to some of the kids out there, and I say this specifically because I have one that has this aspiration, you know, what I always call those like, you know, music tech schools, like any of those kind of things, like that's just, you know, MIT or, you know, Drummers Collective or something like that. What do you think, how do I want to put this? If you're trying to do what you're doing and get to where you're going, why would that be better than a regular like college education?
In my case.
Yeah, in your case.
Okay, awesome. So, right, I can authoritatively answer for me, and then we can explore outside of that.
But for you specifically.
I was given the ridiculously fortuitous gift in high school of getting to go to Berklee for 5 weeks or 6 weeks over the summer. It didn't count for college credit or anything.
It's like a camp.
Yeah. Yeah, it's somewhere between summer camp and actual college experience. You're living in their dorms, you're going to their classes, you're taking tests, you're taking private lessons, you do proficiencies, you do exams, and at the end they give you the report card, and then you can rip it up because it doesn't go in any official transcript anywhere. So it's like a pre-simulation of college. And I'm sure that that's just a marketing tool for them to then
recruitment
charge you,
tool.
Yeah, $200,000 to give you a degree later. But it's also like it's how they groom scholarship competitors there. It's how I got my deal with them. So they went on this world scholarship tour where a panel of like 5 or 6 of their professors will, over the summer, or maybe it was in the spring. Who cares? They go to a bunch of cities across the world, and they had one in Atlanta, and I hitched a ride over there. I snuck out to Atlanta and auditioned. They get you to do some sight reading. They figure out how well you can hear. And then they say, just play something. Show us who you are on the instrument. Blow our mind. And they gave me a scholarship to go do 5 weeks up there in this college simulation. And I think at that time, at age 16, all I had to go on was I was told by my music mentor in Alabama, who's not from Alabama, and he understands the difference between what that place is musically and what the broader world is musically. He said, if you can find a way to get out to this thing, get to it. And that was all he said, no explanation. And when I got there, I understood that what that meant is that it's the first time in my life I was surrounded by people who were as bloodthirsty, dedicated to this dream as I was. I had never experienced that before age 16.
Was that guy a band director or a drum teacher?
He wasn't a drum teacher. He was, I would call him a band director. Although the school I went to was so small, it wasn't even called band. It was more of a theoretical class called orchestra.
So you weren't in marching band, like a traditional, like down south marching band.
I never went to I briefly went to a school. I went to 3 different high schools, and one of them had a marching band. And by then I had such a musical, identity is too pretentious of a word. I had enough of a musical agenda at that point and enough of a community that band already wasn't the answer. So I didn't even do it.
Okay.
Instead, like I would skip school and write rock songs with my friends. Like that was my band. But I don't know, when I was 12 or 13 or whatever and going to a smaller school, that's when I played saxophone. And
okay.
That guy, a lot of that is boring to talk about, but that is if there's one human in the world who gave me the gift of music, it's the guy who ran that orchestra at that tiny school I went to. And his name is Nick Lukansky. He probably won't hear this, but
mine is Mark Atkins, and he probably won't hear this either. It's funny how we all have that one. It's like your bully. Yeah. Everyone remembers the bully you had, and everyone remembers the name, even if you were like in 6th grade. Everyone remembers that music guy, that person.
Oh, dude, those are formative times that determine like the rest of our lives, dude. I mean, look at the life that you've built for yourself because of this guy, Mark Atkins.
I've also cussed Mark Atkins before in bad situations. Been like, I should have stayed in law school.
Oh, right. Damn you for derailing my what could have been a good life.
Like when you're when that hour opening set, because of whatever reason, turns into a 20-minute set, and you're like, I wouldn't have to be dealing with this shit if I stayed in law school.
That's so funny, man. Did you go to law school?
No, I went to pre-law.
Yeah.
I did pre-law, and then it was after I'd done my music ed, and then I went as an older fella, and then I just went to my first, and I'd already been playing and had been in a band. I did a little bit of, it would have been, let me see, it would have been Big East touring. It would have been Big East. So before the Big East got rid of, was gone. I don't know what it'd be now. All-American Conference, maybe? Is that right? All-American, that would be what the Big East would be?
Well, it was, yeah, like those conferences weren't relevant in a Roll Tide context, man, when I was growing up. Like,
see, but at this time they actually were. Like the Big East really was like Maryland,
I get what you're
Penn State, you know what I mean? Like Mid-Atlantic area. And I went to pre-law, and I went to and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do work. I want to play in a band and do that. Yeah, that was one of those things that we've all heard of, all of us who've trying to make music our life's work, is that dastardly word fallback.
Oh yeah, wow.
You know what I mean?
I had a visceral reaction to you saying it.
Right, so we all do.
Well, look, man, I'm glad you've landed in music where you are. Like your presence is really warm to me in the drumming world, and like you're so awake and present, and you give a shit. It's like, I'm so glad you're a staple of the drumming world, man.
Dude, I appreciate it. That's something I wanted to come back to, and I specifically said that in my video that I did on you, because I think that, and this is just me, thinking. Do you feel that you're in this gray area of where most people know you because of this YouTube cat and a really successful YouTube guy, but you're also a super busy gigging drummer that same crowd probably doesn't know about? Like when you were saying, like the guy's like, oh, finally Harry get us another video. It's been 6 months since the last one. And that guy is just a YouTube drum content viewer and doesn't realize that you're in Australia taking pictures with kangaroos. Like, is it hard for you? And do you ever try to explain that to your crowd? Like, I'm not doing this. I'm still alive. As you said, like, is Harry dead? But like, you're out on the road. Like, I'm here. I'm doing this.
I know what you mean.
How do you juggle that?
Yeah, so like another one of my really, really important creative mentors in my life, one time in passing, he said to me as we were working on something, he said, "Show, don't tell." And I took that to heart. Like on some level, I think about him saying that every day, and I like really adopted that. And as it applies to what you're asking me, I've decided at some point, if people think I'm a guy in a basement playing the drums into a camera, that's on me. That's what I put out there. I set the tone. Right. And so I decided at some point that if that's the part of my life I want people to know about, then, or if that's how I want to be seen, then I have to do the uncomfortable work of bottling that essence and delivering it. And the video that came out yesterday, it took me 13 months to make on a practical scale, but it feels
I noticed you got to be close to people, so I was like, this definitely wasn't made in the last 3 months. There's not a mask in this video. You almost had to, there are people that are being shamed for putting up old Instagram videos or of pictures of like 2 years ago of them like hugging a bunch of people. I'm like, no mask. Yeah. Almost think that like maybe somewhere in that video, like this was made 13 months ago.
Yeah.
There was no social distancing then, because when I watched it, it was like, this just goes to the life that we're living right now. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, wow, look at Harry be close to people. Like,
it's surreal to watch all this footage, because I have a sense memory that I guess I was there for it, but like seeing myself, the image of me next to the image of other people on a screen, I'm like, Wait, did that happen in real life? Because I don't
It's
even
been
remember
so
what that's like.
long. What's been
Yeah.
so long to just quarantine? Like, I remember and I want to talk about that too. I've gotten to do 2 gigs during the quarantine, and they were both like live streaming, like that video that I sent you.
Mhm.
Have you got to play any gigs? Have you done any live streaming type stuff since the quarantine?
No, so there was a lot of that, especially here. Everybody here, everybody's label here is pressuring them like, oh my God, we got to do live stream shows right now.
Yeah, I see that.
Um,
Like, I see the Exit In is kind of doing like kind of a regular gig of bringing in bands, and they've got it wired to film, and they're just kind of like that's now a gig. You just go to Exit In and do a
oh,
live stream gig.
okay, cool. I had no idea.
Jimmy's best friend is directing it. That's the only reason why I know about it.
Okay, what's that guy's name?
Adam Jones,
Yeah,
not
okay.
the not the Tool guitar player, but
Ah, too
the
bad.
music director guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like because really we can't not talk about drumming in today's world without dealing with it. Like it seems like that's what's going to happen for a while. We're going to find out what musicians are on stage for the ego feed of a crowd,
Yeah.
and who are actually on stage and playing those songs because they really want to.
Man, I know what you mean. In some ways, I feel like the implications of this work are constantly weeding us out in that way. Like I have decided at some point that ultimately, like, to do this for a lifetime, like you can only ultimately do it if you want to.
Right.
All these other things kind of will crumple up like the leaves in the fall, man. Which is cool. I like that. And also, like, fine, some people pass through and they play guitar for Hanson when Hanson is big, and then they hang it up and now they sell houses or something, and that's like the best choice for them. And
Well, this is a little bit even different than that because now we're being forced to not do gigs because of the situation that we're in.
Right. So you saying that reminds me that you were asking, like, have I been on stage in the last few months?
Yeah, since the lockdown.
Right.
So, like I said, I know that there's a few live stream things that are coming that are emitting from Nashville in studios and on stage.
Yeah, I would describe it not as a few. I would describe it as total inundation.
For real?
I realize, my life is full of people who have record deals and pressure on them and all that. And I know all these like social media heads that the labels are going like, all right, you got a live stream today, you got a live stream tonight, you got a live stream tomorrow, and then we're gonna do one for Jim Beam.
We must get Venmo coming.
When I see that, and it was a tidal wave, it was an instant tidal wave in Nashville when that happened.
Really?
Online. And so my instinct in those situations a little bit naturally is like to just swim the other way.
Okay.
And so I remember like a thing that I was thinking of early on during, let's just vaguely call it quarantine, was like that I had an option here to honor the silence, that I've been engaging in constant noise for the last 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
And one personal choice I kind of made is like, okay, we're all creative people. We all are used to like a baseline level of adrenaline lift at 10 p.m. every night. I understand that we need an outlet for that. And so most people's natural reaction, I cannot count how many people called me in the first week or two and they said, you'll never believe it, I just wrote a song about quarantine and I need you to play drums on it right now. Like, cause I need to put it out tomorrow. Cause we got to do stuff, man. And
it's got to go viral. I will be the first viral virus song. It's got to go out tomorrow.
Totally. And I hope that me saying that doesn't sound unempathetic, because like, I know these people, I love these people, and like their lives, including mine, it's all built around that steady stream of making noise, and hearing
and getting noise.
Yes. And so and like we're all processing this differently. And so I understood the restlessness of that. A choice I just made personally is I want to honor the silence. I'm just gonna turn the lights off. And like so I said no to every quarantine song that I got called about. A guy from Green Jello called, and put me on a song, and then later I found out that song was about quarantine. I loved playing on it though, man. It was like a pop punk thing.
Right. So
And
you have your stuff wired, and that's something that I've done a couple recordings with actually Jimmy and that bunch down there.
mm-hmm.
I made this joke. I did a react of Metallica doing a quarantine song. Have you seen that?
Oh,
Where
did
it's
they
like,
do Blackened?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
you can
have
see they're
seen
all
that.
in their hat. Like James is like at his dad desk, like, playing acoustic guitar. He looks just like my dad. It's so weird. Like James
He's
Hetfield
full
looks
dad
like,
now.
he is. He look, dude, my dad, Big Steve. I put a picture up in the video, and he looks just like Big Steve. It's so crazy.
Yeah,
But
has evolved into his final form. Go ahead.
yes. Did we've as drummers, we've had to learn how to be fucking engineers, and it's the last thing I ever wanted to do because I hate microphones and chords. I love being able to have the studio time, set up stuff. I will buy you shots later if you do a good job. Let me just come in and sit down and put on headphones and play. And we've all now had to learn how to. Did you already have that ability, like when you were doing, like, say that the Green Jello quarantine song? Were you already like up on Logic or Audacity or Pro Tools or whatever? Did you already have a rig and stuff?
Yeah, so I need to own up to this fully because it's like pretty embarrassing. My college degree is in audio engineering.
Okay.
Now that you know that, isn't it hilarious that like, or hilarious is the wrong word. Isn't it sad that like I don't think there's any. I feel the same way you do. I don't think there's a bigger struggle for me in the world than making audio do what the fuck it's supposed to do, man.
Dude, man, what is that thing that happens when you have your YouTube set up, and you can hear this in my Stuart Copeland video really badly. All the levels are set. Maybe I've moved the laptop since the last time, but the microphone's in the same exact spot. And it sounded great yesterday, and 2 days later, it sounds like shit. What is that? What gremlin thing is happening which is the reason why I hate the stuff. I hate it. I hate these things, these chords.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. We call that the gremlins. Well, dude, I'll tell you something that's inspired me a lot with that. I mean, my immediate answer to your question of like, how could it possibly be different today if everything was the same 2 days ago?
Right.
One of the best gifts I've been given in the audio engineering world was like the definitive. Man, I want to say this concisely so that it like hits the hardest. The sooner we disregard this as a science and just say this too is an instrument, just like a drum. Like, wasn't this floor tom the most banging thing I've ever heard in my life yesterday? What happened? Is the temperature 2 degrees different, and now I hate this drum?
Right.
By getting a college degree in audio engineering, I made the mistake of thinking that this is an objective science. And it took me until I met Aaron Sterling, maybe, and I'll never forget Aaron saying, he's like, I don't know a more prolific home studio musician than him.
Okay.
Especially at the level that he's at.
Remind me to ask you about that home studio act thing that happened in Nashville after this. Go ahead and tell the story.
Okay, yeah. So Aaron, for anybody listening that doesn't know, Aaron, like any mega smash hit that's been on the radio in pop or in country music this year or last year, if you're hearing it on the radio and it has live drums in it, like, there's a massive chance Aaron Sterling did it in his house.
Really?
Yes. Like, the one that
not in one of the cathedrals on Music Row.
Dude, like he's from here, but he lives in Los Angeles, so he did it in his house in Los Angeles. The first thing I'm thinking of is the Sarah Bareilles song "Brave." That's one of her bigger songs. But there are Keith Urban songs that he played on from his house. There are Ben Rector songs, Maren Morris. Harry Styles. The last Harry Styles album is full of shit that Aaron Sterling did, as far as I know, in his house.
Okay.
And like, so that's what he's known for. And he's, where was I going with this?
He was telling you about like how the microphone isn't a science; it's a living instrument thing.
So to begin, like to start at, Aaron's musicality is such that he I'm sure he has a good working knowledge of gear or something, but he doesn't look at drums as drums necessarily. If we're just talking about this as drummers, he doesn't care what piece of metal he's hitting to get a clang sound.
Okay.
And so he's somewhat known for, he'll take the sheet metal siding of an HVAC and he'll hit it with his elbow or something. And it will, and the like stuff like that is in the song Brave.
Really?
Yes, like orchestral sounding banging sounds. If you listen to that song, it's like, it turns out he was hitting a piece of sheet metal with a Fisher Price mallet that his kid didn't want anymore. Like, that's the level, because he doesn't care how he gets the sound. He's just like looking for the end result. And so what clicked for me recently, he said, like right before Society ended, I spent some time out there like picking his brain. And he said this thing that I feel like I'm never going to forget. He goes, the drums aren't just your instrument. This entire studio is your instrument. The entire flow of signal from your hand all the way to the 2-mix, like all the way to the FM radio in somebody's car, that entire stretch of signal is your instrument. So you need to have his attitude was, you need to have the relationship with this 421 that you have with your snare drum, because all of them contribute to that 2-mix. So he's not going, you need to learn your numbers of EQs. He wasn't saying that at all. He's going, you know how sometimes you just throw it out there, hit a drum a little differently, see what happens. Same thing with the microphone. Just be weird. Just keep doing shit until the whole thing is what you want. And the process of that, to embrace the process of that is to embrace that this whole thing is Fugazi. So why does your mic sound shitty today and it sounded great 2 days ago? Because it's Fugazi, just like the drums are. You know what I mean?
That's great. You could even take that farther and think about the environment as well, because you've heard that, like, you play the room. Like if you think about like, him talking about the drums to the microphone, to the compressors, to all the way to the mix, to the radio, that it's like even you to that right corner there and you to the ceiling above you, and you're playing that whole space.
Yes, that's beautifully said. Like, it would not have occurred to me to say that, but that's like brilliant and totally true.
So what that gets me back to is like some Nashville political news. Did that pass where they were going to like not let home studios do their business down there? Did that pass?
Probably, but the reason I don't definitively know is because spiritually here there's an understanding. No
matter what the law is, shit's going to go down.
That we live in Music City.
Yeah.
Right. This place is literally called Music City. So all these tourism dollars they get, it's because like all the musicians in this corner of the country live here. So I can tell you that my neighbor that way and my neighbor that way, neither of them are musicians, but when I'm working on something or I'm crunching for a life or death, so many of the gig situations you get in here, like, are usually pretty last minute. Like,
oh yeah,
we're in a bind. They call
I
us
need
at
you
8
at Tootsie's at 6 o'clock, please.
Sure. I mean, the day I met Locash, like, they played the Today Show at 8 a.m. They fired their drummer at 9 a.m. I was on an airplane at noon, and I played a 90-minute set with them at 7 or 8 p.m. So that was the first day I met any of those guys.
Wow. So did they just kind of know you through the grapevine?
Man, their tour manager at that time, I think, knew me from YouTube. What a funny melding of worlds. I can't defend it. I did not personally know anybody working in that camp.
And you didn't do a cattle call, and they just called you.
Yeah, there's no time, right? They had to make a bet on me. And the deal they made with me is get us through the end of this tour, and then we'll deal with this. And maybe you can have the gig or maybe not.
So that brings us back to, what teams have you been on? Again, I think that I know that you've played to tens and hundreds of thousands of country music fans and fans of the bands that you're in, but those same people probably aren't the same ones that are watching your YouTube videos. What teams have you played? Like when you did the Drumeo thing, you were playing like some like pop guy. What are some of the big gigs that you have been doing?
So the Drumeo fellow that you're referring to was the frontman of Hot Shell Ray.
Okay.
Uh, and so they had like what I would describe as the it kind of dehumanizes a little bit to refer to it this way or something, but I don't know, to just give us a metric somewhere on the map. I would describe it as like the biggest song in 2011 or something, or one of the defining songs of that decade.
Okay.
It's called Tonight Tonight. He goes la la la.
Yeah, I remember you. I remember you singing that to the guy. Man, you dude. I'm gonna say this now. They need to fire one of those Drumeo guys and just have you do it. You'd be way more engaging with some of those drummers and those cats. Those cats are great, but you'd do better than that.
The guys that host Drumeo, you mean?
Yeah, when you took a Drumeo over, I was like, please let Harry do a session with JoJo Mayer, or like be the guy off to the side telling awkward questions like those guys do. It's like, I was wanting that to be the takeover. Man,
the reason I was willing to write that skit and do it with them on camera is because I know that they are the right guys for that job, and I one thing that I guess one reason I'm glad you brought Drumeo up, or Dave and Jared up, is that it is an opportunity for me to share how much admiration I have for them as like business people.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're bigger than Modern Drummer right now, if you think about it. Like,
without question.
You know what I mean? Like, that's that old media. You know what I mean? Yeah, Modern Drummer, whatever. But my kids watch, like, Modern Drummer is like dudes my age watch. My kids, my students watch Drumeo.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I feel like I have a foot in both because
have you been in Modern Drummer, Harry?
Yeah, this year.
Yes.
And that is for guys like us, that's like a sentimental.
Dude, that's huge. I'd like to send that to my mom.
I went to Fork's Drum Closet and I like bought a few copies, man. And I literally I sent one home to Alabama, and there's one sitting in my box. I'm not really much of a material fellow, but I have.
So were you in there for YouTube, or were you in there for low cash?
They did a series called In the House, or some punny thing about home studios. I don't even remember what the name was. Wow, that sounds like I really don't appreciate the opportunity.
Not at all. Not at all.
I feel brain dead. But they do a series of like, the issue right before me was they went to Ray Luzier's house. He plays in Korn.
Yeah, he's down there too, right?
He's in Franklin, yeah. Okay. So yeah, essentially he's in the same city here.
You're in Franklin. No one outside of Tennessee makes the distinction. You're in Nashville.
The second I said that, I was like, what? Who gives a shit?
I'm in Hendersonville.
If you don't live in New York City, who gives a shit whether you live in like Brooklyn or Manhattan? Like, that doesn't even mean anything to most people. It's just so ingrained, like, because that's how we talk to each other here. Yeah, it's just about like home studios kind of, but naturally I've learned this with interviews, man, especially the written word. What gets printed on the page is ultimately your responsibility as the subject. Right. If you don't want something printed, don't give it up. Like, really, like, I had such a weird experience of doing this interview for this Italian drum magazine. In the interview they interviewed me backstage in Italy, wherever we were, and they interviewed me in English. They had the tape recorder. It was like the old school press experience.
Right. Analog interview.
Yeah, I felt like Michael Jordan in the 90s, man. Jesus, somebody shoot me for the pretension. Okay, so the lady interviewed me in English. And I said, every word that I said got said into a tape recorder. And then I guess they had to translate it into Italian.
Okay.
And they put it in the magazine, and they laid it out. And when they were ready to ship the magazine, they went, okay, just for your approval, they've converted it back into English. and sent it to me in this email, and I read it and I was like, whose interview is this? I didn't say any of this shit. Like, what is this? And eventually I had to come to the realization that their explanation to me was like, well, man, like Italians don't use they don't use the same like idioms you use. Like, what, there's not even a word necessarily for dude. They told me it's basically figo, but that, like, the context of how figo is said out there is different from how we say dude here. And
right.
And all the puns that you all the ways we abuse our language here, it doesn't translate perfectly out there. And so
right.
if I'm leaning too much on just being cheeky and saying silly stuff, then like there's just no substance to that interview at all. So the deal
did you have to give it up? Did you have to be like, well, I guess print it?
Yeah. So what I arrived at was like, okay, print it. And all of Italy is just going to think I'm a weirdo. And but if you ever print it in English, come back to me.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, and I was glad that I had that experience early on. Because
no, was that because of your YouTube or because of a gig you were with?
Man, every piece of recognition I've ever, like even the house that I'm living in, I feel like all of it belongs to YouTube. I really do.
For real? I mean, dude, you're playing in big bands though.
They're so interconnected. Like even that tour manager from Low Cash calling me, that was my call up from the farm team to go like actually pitch for let's say the Padres.
Yes. Yes. Excellent. So that gets us back to like some of the more national gigs, and then I want to talk about you coming up through Broadway, and if you even do Broadway anymore. And then we may have to explain to people who don't know about Nashville what Broadway is, because I'm not going to ask him if you played for Hamilton. So you got Low Cash, you said Hot Shell Ray? What were some other, national, what are these other gigs that are getting you to Australia and Italy?
Well, the European tour was for a alt rock band called Sons of Bill.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
I played a gig with them. I played Mountain Stage with them. Me and Jimmy played Mountain Stage with them.
I knew that you would know them because they are hometown heroes in Virginia.
Okay. Yeah. The NPR, which was actually mine and Jimmy's kind of our little call up from playing bars to something kind of more respectable and substantial, was playing NPR's Mountain Stage. And Sons of Bill was kind of they weren't the headliner because Sam Bush was the headliner. But yeah, I know those cats. This would have been way before you were with them, because this would have been, I'm looking at I have the picture of me and Jimmy doing it right. That's right there. I would have been, shit, I don't even want to say because I'll get it wrong. 2010, 2011, something like that. So you played with them for a while?
I would describe it as I helped them through I feel like my whole career has been this way.
I was going to say, are you the who you going to call guy?
Yeah, apparently so. I'm learning that from this conversation. I don't want to be too specific. My vague memory is that maybe, you got to have your visa stuff together to go to Europe. Like you got to be.
Yeah.
And so I have filled in for certain bands in certain situations where their drummer maybe couldn't cross the border for some reason. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't even remember if that applied with them, but I do remember that the deal up front was they had this album come out in 2018. It was called Oh God, Ma'am. And they knew they wanted to do a really concentrated, controlled tour for it. Most of it was in Europe. And I think maybe a month of it might've been in the United States.
Okay.
And I knew the deal up front was, we're just trying to get to that island and back. Can you just get there and back with us and then go our separate ways? It wasn't like I was the drummer in that band. Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, sideman, you were the
capable
sideman who could get it done. Do you feel like that sometimes? Like, okay, let's get back to that. Did you go through the, Broadway, East Nashville dive bar, tract of getting into Nashville?
Not at all. I had a thriving 5-day career on Broadway.
For
And at the end of the 5th day, I was like, I'm too much of a wimp for this. I'm like not man enough to stand up to these hours.
to play. Okay, first let's explain to people who don't know, because we might be doing some inside baseball here. Nashville has a street. It is called Broadway. It's Broadway Street, Avenue, Boulevard. What is it?
We just call it Broadway.
It's Broadway. I don't even think anyone knows. It is what does my buddy call it? It is the world capital for wedding showers. Like bridal showers. It's the world headquarters for bridal showers.
He might have said bachelorette parties.
Bachelorette parties, that's it. It is the part of Nashville that you go to if you're a tourist and you want to go home to your town and say that you had a Nashville experience, and that is the main stroll. See, make sure I'm saying I'm describing this right for people who don't know. That it is kind of it's what's the street in Austin?
Oh, in Austin, Texas?
Yeah, what's the street that like South by Southwest is known for being on?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've probably never even set foot on it, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
But anyway, for people who don't know, Broadway is where bands play, all day in tons and tons of different bars. And a guy can play, or girl, play 3 or 4 gigs a day on Broadway.
Yes, and they make a lot more money than I do.
So you'd never put together your little carry-on bag with wheels to navigate through the tourists to play all the gigs and play the same covers that everyone's doing on Broadway? You never went that route?
Yeah, so I once called that a Broadway cart. I said that
it is a Broadway cart.
I said that to Tim Buell. He was playing with Adam Sanders, and he rolled up he was so hurt when I said this, and I'm willing to say it out loud because we worked it out.
Right.
But the significance of it to me is the stigmatized dynamic of it in the first place. But we were all playing the Wild Horse, where on Broadway, all the drum sets are permanently installed.
Yes, and you bring your drums, you bring your snare drum and your cymbals.
Yes, exactly, and probably a kick pedal.
Yeah.
And also
Felts. What is the deal with the down? Runs me nuts every time I come to Nashville. I now know I have a Nashville bag that has the nuts and the felts, because none of the cymbal stands on Broadway or even the places I've played in East Nashville. I'll be honest, I like playing dive bars in East Nashville more. It's just more fun. Because I am one of those yokel locals that come from out of town to be able to tell your hometown that you played in Nashville. But man, what is the deal? What is the deal with there's no felts on Broadway? How do you do what? How do you keep your cymbals from not falling off? It runs me crazy.
People here are upset about that. And your reaction is the pragmatic one of okay, I'm bringing my own felts.
Yeah, I have a Nashville bag that if I go, I have the what is it, the 8mm and the 5mm lugs, or wing nuts to match every one of them, and I just have 12, 15 felts, and even now I've added sleeves as to not keyhole in case it's a 4-hour gig.
Dude, you're so on top of it. This is what I'm talking about when I was saying that you belong here, man. So in the drum world, because that's the practical solution, right? Because the other solution is relying on humans to be responsible about that.
I never rely. I've been in the music business far too long to rely on anyone.
Yeah, so I hate that sounds as cynical as it does, but from my point, it's amazing how much agitated emotional heat perpetuates itself here, because people are like, oh my gosh, where did the felts go? Dude, we all just need to decide right now that
bring your
humans
own
are humans are super self-serving. As a whole, they're going to be very unlikely to pay any attention to how their actions affect you. They don't even know you.
No.
They're trying to get
NPC
home. They just played. Yes, I love that you're saying it that way, dude. They just played "Don't Stop Believing" for 4 hours. They want to fucking go home, man. They don't
They do not care that your ride cymbal is going to fall off because there's no felts on it.
The felts incinerated. They didn't even steal the felts. The felts incinerated as they sprinted at Mach speed out the door. So
yeah, so like the felt in Nashville is like a towel for Hitchhiker's Guide. You gotta have your towel, man. I mean, like I'm going to get this gig done and I'm going to be as comfortable as possible, and I'm not expecting, especially because we talked about the beginning of all this, like, man, and I understand that those engineers, you're the fourth drummer that they've seen today. You're the fourth good drummer. Probably, that they've seen today. You're just another bag of bones that's behind that. Am I right in because this is back when I first started going down there and playing like the basement and playing the exit in. Most of those drums are Mapex in those places. Does that sound about right?
They were at that time because Hibbs was here.
Okay.
Hibbs passed away a few years ago, but Mapex operated here, and I bet still does. But like to this city, Mapex was Joe Hibbs.
Okay.
So when he died a few years ago, like the other really strong drum presence in town is Pearl.
Yeah. And give a shout out if you're endorsed by.
Yeah, I've never owned a drum in my life that was not made by Pearl.
Even before they endorse you.
Yeah.
Nice. So Soul Tone cymbals. I still get that email, dude. I've been there. They still send me to this day. I still get emails from Soul Tone.
Oh, cool. I made
not cool. I work at a music store, and when the guy was like, because the last band I was in, we were a Big East team, and we were moving into Big Ten area, and I was starting to get, it's like, well, I've got enough clout. I can try to get something for something, and send out emails, and they just send out anything. And by the time that they gave me my endorsement, I work at a music store. I got a better deal at the music store that I worked at. That video is amazing. The endorsement video that you made.
Oh, thank you, man.
That's because a lot of people and I've got a really good friend of mine just got a Ludwig deal, and a lot of people think that like you get that endorsement and you just have carte blanche to just get as much gear as you possibly want, which you may have that deal.
I am spoiled rotten as far as I'm concerned with that stuff.
Yes, that's a good way to be.
But I also understand, man, like Pearl took a chance on me. I think they were the first company to sign me. And so when I got in, they gave me the entry-level deal, which, by the way, I was kissing their feet.
For sure.
I walked out of Pearl HQ and was like ecstatic that they would even affiliate with me. I didn't care. I was willing to pay them full price for whatever they will. But also, by the time I
was
had
your first drum set an export? Please, it's got to be an export.
Man, it was a forum.
That's even better. I was going to say either if not the export, then the forum. It's got to be. Man, I've got a student right now. His very first drum set has all A customs, and it's a Mapex Orion. And I'm like, dude, my first drum set was like B8 Pros and CB percussion. And like I had him yesterday on a Skype lesson, and I was like, are they all A customs? He's 14. Are they all A customs? That must be nice. Because I remember like being 15 and just playing on scimitars and B8 Pros.
Dude, I lived on B8s.
Dude, they were. I still say that B8 Pros, and I think you're a Zildjian guy. Are you a Zildjian guy?
I joined the Meinl family in the summer of 2017. But prior to
sand stuff is amazing.
Yeah, I don't want to turn this into a.
Dude, I'm with you. I don't want to get into too much gear nerdery.
Well, I don't even mean it that way. Like, I want you to go in this conversation wherever you want to go. But I love Meinl, and I'll talk about them as much as you want. I won't be the reason we.
Well, just so I can nerd out, like I've worked in music stores for 20 plus years, and I've seen every instrument come through, and I'm very unimpressed by gear, really.
Yeah.
But man, is it the sand line. Is that what I'm thinking of?
Probably.
Is that what it's called?
Well, they have, so the line that I think you would love and that you're probably referring to is called Byzance. Um, so some people, like from the outside, it can seem like in certain circles, it can seem like Byzance is all they make. If you
Right.
ignore all the metal stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and within that Byzance line, there are many models that have the sand prefix. So
Okay. Yeah,
their sand crashes.
I played like a 23-inch sand rod,
Yeah,
maybe.
totally. You
Dude.
absolutely did.
And again, I've been in a music store for years. I have great gear. I know about great. I've been to PASIC a bunch of times. I'm not impressed by gear at all. And this is not me trying to get an endorsement. Man, that stuff is phenomenal. I'm very, very rarely impressed by new shit. My snare drum is a 64 Gretsch. You know what I mean? Like, I've got all the gear I want. But man, that sand stuff is phenomenal. I've got a buddy that's a producer drummer who has a Gretsch Renown who's watching this, who does all of my graphic design. Jeffrey sold me that Gretsch Renown. And he's got that stuff. And man, if we play a gig, I'm like, hey man, can I do like I'm friends with him enough that I can use his metal. Like, dude, can I use that sand snare or that sand ride cymbal? And then he got the sand hi-hats. It's like, hey, do you mind if I play those hi-hats too? You know what I mean?
That's how it begins. Look, I mean, we have the same experience. I had a residency demo gig at Station West here in Nashville. That's where like Dirks made all his stuff, and like Luke Wooten runs that place. He's Brad Paisley's producer now, and he kind of made all the Dirks stuff that put Dirks on the map. And so Brad's drummer, Ben Caesar, who was a Meinl artist at that time, picked out the house drums and the house cymbals. And I'd be bringing, it was like we cut 5 demos every Tuesday at 4 p.m. I think that's when our session started, every Tuesday, no matter what. And we'd go in, and the first couple of sessions, I'd bring in my own cymbals. And every night they'd go, man, you got something this way or that way. And I'd start throwing up house cymbals. And by the end of these sessions, I was only playing Ben's Meinl cymbals. And it happened the way you're talking about. It starts out, there's like a sand ride, and you're like, oh, dude, I'll just use this and start leaving my ride cymbal at home. And by the end, I go like, cymbals have never sounded this way to me in my life. And so I almost didn't care about the consequence. I didn't even call Meinl. I went to Forks and just bought in cash every Meinl cymbal I wanted.
Right.
And then later, Meinl reached out to me when I made this, we'll call it spirit tone. I didn't say soul tone.
Dude, I mean, it's their fault they've sent me emails almost monthly for 6 years now. And I've told them a long time ago I'm not interested.
I very intentionally applied. I made up a fake email address and I called it Kaiser Jose. Just hoping, I just wanted to punch them in the forehead with the irony. And like, I wanted to give them every possible opportunity to be like, oh, this is not an actual human being. And I did not oversell my qualifications at all. I was like, I think what I said in my application was, I'm thinking of forming a band with my friends called the Lesbian Convention Fiasco or something. I don't remember what I would. And they replied pretty quickly and were like, we've considered your application, Mr. Jose, and we're very proud to offer you an official Soul Tone Cymbals endorsement. And I want to print that email out and like frame it.
Oh, dude, I can do you one better than that. Well, he's not a friend. He's a guy in the scene, and I'm not going to give his name out. He did it. And so like, I've seen on flyers being like name of the band, and it was like this instrumental metal band, which would be the kind of guys that would like list the names of the people in the band. So it'd be like name of band, and in the list of the people in the band, and underneath homeboy's name was like Soul Tone Cymbal Artist.
Oh yeah, milk it, man. You're on your way.
And have you actually played them? Because I don't care to bury them. I don't care. Have you actually played them?
No, I don't think I've ever seen one in real life, honestly.
Well, I've played this guys, and they are garbage.
Yeah.
They're terrible. And I want to make sure that you know that I wasn't doing that Meinl thing just for you. I've said on 2 or 3 different videos that I've done, oh, I can't pick out who they were. I think Bron Daler was one of them. But it seemed like Meinl, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Meinl is coming for Zildjian and Sabian stuff. So this is a consistent stance that I've had. I don't want to sound like I'm kowtowing, because I believe that they're coming for Sabian Zildjian stuff.
Yeah. So I'm spiritually, I'm with you. I remember when I first started encountering those symbols, Meinl reminds me as a company of Apple in the early 2000s when they came out with the iPod. Apple was like hungry, and they had an identity unto themselves, and they were kind of the underdog in a way at that time. But they made this thing that changed the essence of people's lives, kind of, and that's how I feel about these symbols. Which sounds the reason I say it hesitantly is because it can sound hyperbolic or overly dramatic, but that really was my experience of these symbols coming into my life. I know that, like, what you're saying is truer in reality than you might even realize. Like these symbol companies are, as much as we're tipping our hat to the competitiveness of musicians, these symbol company guys want to kill each other. Like,
yo, dude. Well, I mean, Sabian is former Zildjian family members.
Yeah, and I like these people are all human beings, and they're all doing whatever they're doing with their lives, and so some of it's not my place to say, but I can at least tell you without pause at all that every time one of these companies runs an ad, the other two are looking at that and just grinding. They're grinding their teeth into chalk and going,
someone call Dave Weckl. We need another poster.
they're going, we're going to get these guys. We're like, dude, I mean,
we're going to have the next 3 covers of Modern Drummer is going to be Zildjian artists. You wait and see.
It really is that, it's that 80s Celtics, Lakers, Larry's going to kill you thing, man.
Right.
And look, I love that Meinl is like hungry, and that they, no doubt Zildjian is the silverback gorilla of that industry. I don't know how much that shows externally. And I'm speaking as an outsider. I don't see any of these numbers, but I know that Zildjian has like massive saturate. Man, all of a sudden, the more I talk about this, I'm like, man, it's not my place to really talk about this stuff. And
oh, dude, no problem. No problem. But so, yeah, like, let's wrap up here a little bit. So what do you see? And again, we can't, it's the 900-pound gorilla in the room. Like, what do you think? And no one has this answer, and I know you don't have the answer, but what is your opinion on it? What is gigs going to look like in the near future? And are you eventually going to start participating?
So last weekend, Paisley and John Party. Do you know where I'm going with this? Okay, so last weekend in Nashville, Indianapolis, and St. Louis, in the parking lots of those amphitheaters, they set up a stage, and they set up 9 feet by 18 feet spaces. You buy a ticket. A ticket gets you 3 spaces. Space 1, put your car. Space 2, you and your party. Space 3, nothing. And then the next one over begins another 3 spaces.
Whoa. This is going to make gigs very exclusive.
Yeah, it was kind of a prototype idea that you've seen popping up a little bit. Like Dave Chappelle just did a special that kind of resembled this as well.
Yeah, wasn't that in his backyard?
Oh, probably. I mean, I think owns quite a bit of.
He does. He has a big ass farm out in Ohio. I think that was just in his backyard. So does it like?
And the feel that I got from that Chappelle thing is that almost it was like a neighborhood event more than it was like a marketed like Live Nation thing. But this Brad Paisley stuff that happened over the weekend was, we're selling tickets. Here's the logistics of it. Bring your own food. Wear a mask. Be in these parking spaces. Be spread out. If you have to go over to those bathrooms, you got to put your mask on, and it's got to be done in this regimented way. And then there's Paisley and his band on stage, and the crew guys I just watched 3 minutes of the live stream of this last night out of curiosity. The crew guys are up there in like hazmat suits. They look like they're on the moon. They look like
They look like they're coming for ET.
they can, and with like it's almost as if with radioactive rubber gloves, they're like, "Here's your drop D guitar, Mr. Paisley," and they take the other one.
I would take your Telecaster here and take it away.
And,
So now the big question: so was that a Live Nation event?
oh, absolutely, it was. Yeah, and
Yeah, Live Nation was going to figure out a way.
oh, totally, man. Yeah, I'm sure they're taking it in the teeth right now. I mean, they've just paid me back $600 and canceled it. They just gave me my Jerry Seinfeld money back, my Green Day money back, and my Steve Martin money back.
Wow,
Oh,
you're going to see, man, I want to see all three of those things. Oh,
no.
dude, have you ever heard the Steve Martin record, Let's Get Small?
I can't name any Steve Martin record I've heard. I
No,
just
this
know
is a
bits.
comedy record. This isn't his bluegrass like record.
Yeah,
This
I
is-
know what you mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So were you going to see him in his bluegrass band or like him doing stand
Oh,
up?
no way. I was going to see stand up.
Dude, you're like the third person I've ever met that's not my dad who loves Steve Martin stand up. He is the man.
Dude, my attitude that I've gone to so many concerts going, I'm not a super fan. I'm just going to live my life with regret if I don't stand in this presence of, you know what I mean? This is why I saw Paul McCartney last year. Like, I want to see a Beatle, man.
Dude, I want to see Abe Laboriel Jr. play every day of my life.
Yeah, that should have been the reason I went.
Dude, did he have on his, I don't know if he still has it, because I know this on a few tours ago. Did he have the big comfy chair as his bass drum head?
I totally don't know what you mean. I don't have any specific memory of his equipment at all now that I
So
think about it.
me, I have a couple friends and we are Abe Laboriel fanatics. I love
Rightfully.
his behind the beat groovy style makes me want to dance. But he, for a while, his bass drum was a big recliner chair, and it said everything that you needed to know about playing with Abe Laboriel Jr.'s
Oh,
drumming.
God.
Is like playing with Abe Laboriel is like sitting in the comfiest chair that you've ever sat on.
Dude, how badass do you have to be to make a statement like that, like, and do it confidently? Like, that's badass, man.
Dude, he's the man. He sings all those. Do you like that's I know I'm trying to wrap it up because we've getting a little long, but I don't care about that because I think there are a lot of people that are actually hungry for this kind of video from you.
Mhm.
I've gotten you in my comments section. I've only had this channel since May of last year, and almost immediately I've gotten you as a request. Like, oh shit, I lost where I'm at. Oh damn it, Harry. We're talking
Able
about
Royal
your
recliner.
recliner. Shit, I got lost. I was about to have a good crescendo for all of this. Damn it.
Well, let's see. I said, how badass do you have to be to make a statement like that and put your foot down and say that?
Well, okay. So like what I was saying, no, I've lost it. Well, damn it, Harry. Damn it.
Yeah, strangely, me too. Kind of. I felt like I knew where you were going too, but
Maybe the universe is telling us that we should get some Tostitos and take it to the house.
yeah, I do have to admit that my my video came out at 8 a.m. yesterday. It was scheduled to do so for a long time. I knew for a long time that was the release date. In fact, this was scheduled kind of in relation to that, and yet I did not finish the upload and metadata until 7:52 a.m. yesterday.
You have hours like I do. All of my videos are recorded at about 3 a.m.
Dude, that's awesome. That I like.
Well, because when I went to talk to you about arranging this, I was like pro hang. I want to be like, okay, we're going to do this at citizens hours because I would much rather do it late like we did this. And I thought, well, he's Harry Miree. He's a professional, YouTuber and drummer, and he has to be on time. And I was like, we'll probably do this at 6 p.m. And then you were like, we do this later. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. Who could be creative at noon?
This is my message to the world. I learned a long time ago. I don't agree to anything before noon anymore. I don't care what it is.
If it's the Today Show, they better want me at 1:00.
Okay, so that to me is a late night show. When I like the last time I played Good Morning America, my lobby call was like 3:30 a.m. Dude, that's just later Thursday night for me.
Yeah,
That wasn't
yeah, it
Friday
is.
morning.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So that's
exactly.
fine. What kills me is the just don't make me be at a lunch at 11 a.m. or something. Like I
I feel that like if you have to get up that early and ply yourself with coffee, then your body is telling you that that's not a time to be awake.
totally, dude. And you know, the more I embrace that, your story about scheduling with me is such a great lesson of be yourself. You might be less alone in that than you think, right?
Yeah, I'm
Like,
glad. I'm glad I'm not the only vampire YouTube drummer, because that's when I like to practice too. I don't really like if I usually get done teaching at like 7, 8, 9, and I'm gonna not come home and immediately start playing drums. I'll come home, eat, mess around the house, and I'll start practicing at like midnight, 1:00.
is it obvious that this head is mesh
Yes,
and that I
yes.
have rubber rims on it? The point is like the thought to play drums doesn't even occur to me till 1 a.m.
You are my brother from other people. Dude, I've got an electronic drum set behind this because
Yeah.
I live in a townhouse. So even that would be a little loud. I could probably get by with it with those mesh heads, but just to make sure that I stay simpatico with my neighbors, my electronic drum set gets fired up around midnight, 1:00. I mean, that's when like, who's creative at 11 a.m.? Who does that?
Some people, but not me, man. You got to do you, Steve.
I'm trying to, brother. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
So, Harry, thank you so much for being here. Again, I'm a huge fan. I admire you from the distance. I'm so glad that I thought Jimmy has probably played with that guy. Like after watching so many videos of you, I'm like, because Jimmy's kind of like the non-YouTubing, like funnier in a more British dry way than you.
Hilarious.
You know what I mean?
Legendary. Hilarious.
Jimmy is John Cleese, this way shorter.
Perfect.
And I was like, I bet you he's played gigs with Harry. And I just out of nowhere, I was like, man, can you hook me up with this guy? And you've played a few gigs with him?
Yeah, Jimmy and I did a Gary Allen tour, but playing with like an opening act for Gary Allen. That's my memory of it. But that can feel like summer camp, where you know what I mean, where for 6 weeks your bond with those guys in your band is like stronger than the people that brought you into this world, man.
Oh yeah.
So the love that I have for Jimmy Likens, him and John Galletti would be.
Is that their buddy that's the slide player, the pedal steel? Man, he is as Frank Zappa would say, a motherfucker. That
Totally.
dude is a badass.
And here's the good news. Take that and imagine he's even more badass as a human. And dude, he's one of my favorite musicians. Like
I've seen a bunch of him playing with Jimmy and John on some of their quarantine recordings. Whew, man, that dude is serious business.
I love him, and I wanted to give Jimmy Likens love on this show too, because you know, Jimmy Likens is playing for Jake Owen now, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like where so many people are trying to arrive in their careers here. But when I met Jimmy and John Galletti, for that matter, we would be getting in a van at 6 a.m. sometimes to go play with Olivia Lane.
Oh yeah. Was she with Disney?
Probably, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, she had the video, and she actually put Jimmy, Chelsea, and the kid in.
Oh, cool! I live under a rock in some ways. I had a really nice.
Does that song "Make My Sunshine" or something like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the video, one of the videos, because I mean it's Jimmy and Chelsea. They look like they're millennial Ken dolls.
Yes,
I can say that because I was on Jimmy and Chelsea's first date. I was there. Their first date was seeing mine and Jimmy's band play for Chelsea and the bartender. Like I was there from the beginning.
That's how you get it done, man.
That's how you know she loves you. You know, it's easy, like, you know, it's easy for that girl to say she loves you when you're playing a drum solo in a stadium.
I've seen a lot of there. I've seen a lot of people get married because they had a guitar slung around them,
Yes,
and this
absolutely.
glow comes out from behind you when you have a guitar on, and people go,
Absolutely.
"I'll do whatever it takes to marry that guy."
And then they're like, what's that sweaty guy behind him doing?
Yeah, well, um, you know what? I guess I'll put it this way: the drummer, in my experience, attracts a different type, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
very, very
but
much.
I've
And
had
they tend to be consistent.
uh, well, no comments. So I, Jimmy would show up some mornings to and John Galletti. They would show up to to get in a van and ride to Kentucky in the freezing cold at 6 a.m. and they'd have bags under their eyes, and I'd be feeling so well slept, and I'd go, what's up with y'all? And they go, man, we're just coming off. We drove straight here from a double on Broadway. Double meaning, in case it wasn't explicitly said in this conversation, one shift is 4 hours without a break. So 2 consecutive 4-hour shifts. And a guy like Jimmy Likens will do it and never even beat you over the head with it. He just does the work. He does the homework. He cares about the form. He cares about the touch. He's so consistent, and like he's so nice. If people are struggling to move equipment, he's all loaded in and set up. He sees somebody moving somebody, he'll sprint and make you put it down so he can carry your drums for you. And all this time touring under those circumstances with him, I would say out loud to his face and just in the universe, I would go, Jimmy Likens is the guy that that deserves that spot in the pantheon of Cush gig more than anybody else I know. I felt that way about Jimmy and John specifically.
Dude, I agree 100%. I, of course, don't know John, but yeah, Jimmy, I think it showed up where he was like on the big screen at the where does the Titans play?
Yeah, the stadium here, LP Field.
Nissan or whatever.
Yeah, Nissan Stadium.
And that's my buddy. It's like one of my best friends that I grew up with. And I just remember texting him, and I knew he was backstage at that moment. I was just like, man, so proud of him. And like almost emotional. Because like, man, me and him, we struggled on the road trying to get our little band known, you know what I mean? Right. And the biggest thing that we were able to do was actually do that Sons of the Bill gig on NPR. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of and I was just like, dude, you deserve all the good things, like all the things, like you getting good things means that the world is still wired correctly.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's validating that like the good guys can win sometimes.
And
that's how I feel about Jimmy. And so when he reached out to me and asked me if I would talk to you, I didn't even care what the circumstances were. I went, Jimmy says this is a good idea, and Jimmy's a good dude, so I'm just going to do whatever he says, man.
Yeah, I pretty much do whatever he says too. Like I've done like 7 or 8 records with him over the years. And like if I'm stuck, and this is how wise he is music wise, I'm gonna be like, what about this thing? And Jimmy be like, well, you probably should just do this and this. And dude, he's and then we'll do the track, and then everybody in the session will be like, Jimmy's right again. Jimmy's right again. The one that's happened once, and we've been recording a solo record of mine where me, Jimmy, and John have all wrote these songs, and something happened where like I was right before Jimmy was, and I was like, Jimmy, it's been 10 years. I'm finally right before you. And he's like, oh, well, I'm sure that's not true. Happened a long time ago. It's like, no, this is the first time that it's ever happened. It's taken a decade.
That's a great impersonation of him. That's the Jimmy I know.
He's the Jimmy I love, man. Well, Harry, before we go, would you like to put all your plugs in, sir?
I feel that I have overstayed my welcome already.
Never. So. Anytime you want to come back and hang out at Junkdrummer TV. Hopefully, Harry, I'm down there a lot, seeing my friends. So like maybe one day we'll go, check out go to Tootsie's and give Steve Smith some money.
You won't see me there.
That's why I said that. I set you up, sir. But yeah, Mike, hopefully I will come down there and get to see you in real life.
Knock on the door of my house anytime, man. I extend that.
Okay, so go ahead and tell everyone your address, please.
Yo, some people, I mean, I'm glad we're not necessarily, uh, yeah, I don't know. Nashville, Tennessee, just go to they make you,
If you went to Franklin, you've gone too far.
yeah, somewhere, just go to Franklin and start knocking on doors.
So Harry Miree, thank you so much. If you haven't watched him, go watch his channel. His channel is phenomenal. If gigs ever happen again and Low Cash gets to tour again, go see him play. And Harry Miree, thank you so much for being on the episode, sir.
Thank you, Steve. What a privilege, man. Till then.